Once again, back from DPO Surveillance Equipment. I'm owner of DPO Surveillance Equipment, and otherwise known as Spy Gadget Rentals. We're sponsoring this State of the Union and Bitcoin session today. We're just going to go over a number of things that are currently going on in the Bitcoin space in terms of the progress we're making or not, the amount of mass adoption that we have or not, the amount of progress that we're making or not. All of these things we're going to touch upon. Not in a very comprehensive manner, but we're just going to do an overview so you guys will get some idea of what's going on. So getting right into it, we had J. Christopher Giancarlo. He's an American attorney and former business executive who currently serves as chairman of the United States Commodity Futures Trading Commission. He and Walter Joseph J. Clayton III, Mr. Clayton, he's an American attorney and chairman of the United States Securities Exchange Commission. Now, the reason why we're starting here is because we just came off the heels of listening to testimony in Congress where both Clayton and Giancarlo talked about the impact of Bitcoin, ICOs, and basically cryptocurrencies in general. The roles that these instruments are playing, the impact that they have on the economy, and the financial system overall for the world. Some of the highlights, just so you guys will know, include but are not limited to the idea that, especially from Giancarlo's perspective, he feels that the younger people, the millennials, and a lot of the young people are embracing this technology. They're inquisitive, they're inspired, they're motivated to find out as much as possible in terms of what are the possibilities and what are the inner workings of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and what are these things all about. So this is very positive. At least the way Giancarlo put it, he says we owe it to ourselves, basically, to let the younger people find out, experiment with, ask questions about, and get answers to the world of digital currencies and cryptocurrencies overall. Mr. Clayton was a little bit more reserved in terms of he put more emphasis on a number of the potential negatives associated with cryptocurrencies and particularly ICOs. As far as I can tell, and this is just my editorializing, from what I can tell, it looks like Clayton is more in line with the old guard. He wants to make sure that the old traditional ways of running the financial system, in other words, you deal with the SEC, you go through the major gateways, gatekeepers as we like to call them, the big institutional players, for instance, the certain companies, for instance, the Goldman Sachs, the major institutional players, they typically determine by way of accreditation in terms of are you accredited or not. Those usually are the rules by which you play if you listen to Jay Clayton, and they, I think he wants to keep it that way. The Securities Exchange Commission, a lot of those guys, they want to tell us what we can invest in, what we cannot invest in, and if you don't meet their criteria, then you don't have any right or responsibility to be involved in these areas as far as the new economy is concerned. And I call it the new economy mainly because it gives us the opportunity to do so much more as compared to the legacy system, which pretty much restricts and keeps us financially oppressed and keeps innovation at bay at all costs, as far as I can tell. So anyway, the Giancarlo, he does talk a lot about the possibilities. He made sure that the general public understood that blockchain is a type of technology that has tremendous implications. 26 million metric tons of grain was tracked and traced and logged through a blockchain. That was a trial experimentation. It seems like it was successful. Again, Carlo also talked about the mortgage crisis of 2008 would not have happened if we had the blockchain. Mortgages and titles and chain of ownership, a lot of that would have been logged and recorded onto the blockchain. We wouldn't have had the huge issues associated with who owns what and when something was bought and when it was sold and the chain of title and all of that. Those things were a major issue in 2008. And that's why everyone lost confidence, and that market literally unwound and created $1 trillion at least of value disappearing into the ether. And that would not have happened, in my opinion, and also in the opinion of Chris Giancarlo. Now, without going back and forth too much, it looks like, again, Carlo is more on track, stating that his niece or nephew immediately wanted to embrace finding out about cryptocurrencies, and they want to put some money into it, experiment with it, and as compared to traditional stock markets, and as compared to the traditional banking system. So it looked like a lot of young people are indeed voting with their wallets and voting with their own interests in terms of wanting to embrace the newer technologies, the new economy, the new financial system as compared to the old system. So I think we owe it to ourselves, like Christopher Giancarlo talked about, we owe it to ourselves to let people take a look at these things. Make sure they do your own research, DYOR, do your own research. Find out why you're putting money into these new technologies such as Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, the new economy, et cetera, et cetera. Find out what it's all about and make sure you understand the value in it. And while you're in it, we don't need speculators, we don't need gamblers and people who are not committed. So once you find out why you're in it, as a result of doing your own research, then you feel more comfortable when we have these huge swings and price volatility. So moving right along, speaking of volatility, Bitcoin had shot up to around $19,000 at one point, settled back all the way down to about $6,000 now. I'm sorry, we're settling at around $8,000. It took hit a low of around $6,000. Now we seem to be consolidating around $8,000. In my opinion, $8,000 may reflect a type of area of intrinsic value. That simply means that maybe this is the point where the economics makes sense in terms of the value is concerned. Certain assets have value at a certain level, and certain other levels they don't seem to reflect that value, either too high or too low. $8,000 may be the point at which we have a certain amount of intrinsic value. It all depends on how long we stay here, how long we consolidate, and how quickly we go up. If we move up nice and slow in an orderly fashion, maybe this is indeed an area where we have actual value being reflected at $8,000. As we move forward, if we move too fast, then of course you get overpriced, overvalue, and you may get into a situation where you have to adjust back downwards again to reflect the intrinsic value. So let's assume that $8,000 right now may be the area where we reflect intrinsic value based upon a number of things. There could be, if we factor in the overall number of the amount of infrastructure. Infrastructure includes, but it's not limited to, mining equipment, the various things that the infrastructure that make up Bitcoin and virtual currencies in general are going to be mining equipment, the significant amount of investment in the developer community, the tools that we have, such as exchanges, that includes centralized exchanges, decentralized exchanges, certain things like wallets, whether they be online or offline, like the Trezor or the Ledger Nano or hard wallets. All of these things make up the infrastructure. And when you take all of that and add it up, maybe $8,000 again reflects a certain level at which we can maybe we can safely say that that's where we have an actual value, not too low in valuation, not too high in valuation, at $8,000 per Bitcoin, roughly. That's just my opinion. We'll see what happens. Some of the other things that I'm concerned about, for instance, is participation from minorities. Right now, we got a male-dominated community consisting of more people probably from Asia that participating in this space, which is okay, but we want to make sure we get a mixture of different people across various stratas of ethnicity, for instance, and cultures or whatever. The black communities and Hispanic communities are not playing as much a role as Caucasian and Asian. Asian communities are predominant in this space. Such countries such as South Korea, China, Japan, for instance, are very dominant in this area. Even though a lot of those guys don't seem to be as committed. We're seeing a lot of trading volume fluctuate wildly, particularly from China and South Korea. Japan seems to be just slightly more committed in terms of their infrastructure. Japan has 260,000 merchants who are enabled for Bitcoin. They have such things as airlines, electronics stores, and you name it. Japan seems to be settling in and making a commitment to the long term. I can't say the same thing for China. South Korea is slowly but surely making efforts to give us the understanding or convince us that they're committed to this space. Hopefully through legislation. Speaking of legislation, Congress, as a result of listening to the testimony of Chris Giancarlo, and the testimony of Jay Clayton, hopefully we can formulate a long-term strategy, a long-term policy, bring some sort of, regulatory framework by which we can commit ourselves long-term, and maybe this will set a precedent for other countries. The United States is typically viewed as the leading country when it comes to the pace by which other countries follow. So if we set an example by making some concrete regulatory framework for Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in general, ICOs for instance, then maybe the other countries will follow suit. Before I forget, for those of you who want to take a look at employment and you're not quite sure what areas to look at, you may want to consider cryptocurrencies. You may want to consider blockchain, developer type of careers, because this is where the action is going to be. There's nothing like getting paid in cryptocurrencies and as a way of accumulating cryptocurrency. So if someone can pay you by doing developer work, by teaching, by doing customer service, tech support in the cryptocurrency space, or developing in the blockchain developer community specifically, if you can get paid in cryptocurrencies, then that is going to be one way of accumulating Bitcoin, accumulating Ethereum and Litecoin, and that way you can put it away and not have to worry about buying out of your pocket. Let your customers pay you, and that way you just secured it. You can just secure it and let it grow. And as a lot of us have found out, long-term accumulation, long-term investment or hodling has proven to be very successful. So think about establishing yourself a career in cryptocurrencies or blockchain development or some of these other areas, customer support, tech support in this space, and you'll probably do very, very well for yourself. Just put your cryptos away when you earn them from your customers. Hodl, and make sure you have your Trezor wallet or Ledger Nano wallet to put your cryptocurrencies in. What else is going on in this space? We're seeing a lot of progress being made as far as making Bitcoin efficient and Bitcoin as far as making it work quicker and cheaper. There was a lot of concern about Bitcoin not being very quick and not being very cheap. Developers have been working around the clock to mitigate the problem. Some of the things that we can look forward to is the expansion of the Lightning Network. There's at least, I think there's about 1,000 Lightning nodes. Last time I checked, there was 970, up from just barely 80 nodes just a few weeks prior to that. So when in the span of about 2 or 3 weeks, we've gone from like 240 nodes to just under 1,000 nodes, NODES. That simply means that these are the nodes that are going to help us process transactions quicker and faster, and thus alleviate the backlog and congestion on the blockchain. So it looks like we can pat ourselves on the back and know that we have we've upgraded and improved the technology associated with processing those payments faster and processing them cheaper. And as far as I can tell, centralization is not going to be an issue. We will have the ability to pick and choose and label certain Lightning nodes as good if we want, and certain nodes as bad if we want. So we'll be voting with our dollars. And this is new technology, you guys, so don't kid yourself. It's new technology and new paradigm for all of us, and we're learning how it works, what we can do with it, what the possibilities are. So as we put these things online, as we let the community grow, as we let the ecosystem propagate and expand and mature, we're going to be looking at all sorts of issues, all sorts of breakthroughs, all sorts of things to improve upon and fix. So there's a number of things to consider when you introduce new technologies and new innovations. You may solve problems in one area, then you may find issues in another area. So that's the way it goes. When the automobile first came out, it wasn't exactly smooth sailing for everyone involved. Certain industries got disrupted. People were concerned about car pollution. People were concerned about automobile accidents. When railroads came along, same thing. People were concerned about loud noises and all sorts of environmental issues. Every technology, smartphones, televisions, every time we get these new innovations going on that are disruptive, there's going to be reasons to adjust, reasons to figure out solutions to the new problems brought by the new solutions. So that's where we are with Bitcoin as well. We're going to find innovation is giving us a lot of benefits, but at the same time, we're going to be presented with challenges. We'll need to address challenges as we go along, and this is actually good news because we are in control. We can't go to the Federal Reserve in the Bitcoin space, in the non-Bitcoin space. We can't go to the Federal Reserve and say, could you improve the way the dollar works? Could you give us more transparency? Could you stop printing so much? Can you work with us on inflation? That's not going to happen. So we don't have that type of input in the regular fiat world, but we do have the ability to mold our own future in the cryptocurrency space. So this is one major benefit. We're in control. Our money, our technology, our economy. We're gonna. The only obligation is to work with regulators, work with participants, work with the retail investors, work with new people, educate them on why they're in here, why they should be committed, why we don't want to just jump in and out and be speculative, why we don't want to focus too much on the short term, why we should make a long-term commitment, why research is very, 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 very important. So anyway, this is the state of the union for Bitcoin speech, and it looks very, 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 very optimistic. It looks like we're going to go forward. We have various debit cards and credit cards that we can use. We have more Bitcoin wallets for our smartphones and smart devices. We have tons of meetups that are popping up all over the planet. Form a meetup if you can't find one. Help educate, help reach out. Go to your coffee shops, go to your libraries, go to your restaurants with the, hopefully have meeting facilities or something where we can sit down and talk and educate each other about why we're in this space, why we're committed, and why this is very important, and why we should have a long-term outlook as compared to short-term gains and gambling. We don't need the speculation. We don't need the gamblers. So, again, very optimistic. I think we're laying a foundation for significant future growth, and it looks like we're going to be, hopefully, we will be able to make a successful transition from the old economy to the new economy. Stock market is selling off. I don't know whether or not it's a fundamental issue or not, but a lot of people are being very nervous. They're very nervous about the stock market. Is it overvalued? Are there fundamental issues? But anyway, that's what's happening currently. Dow Jones sold off 1,200 points today, and who knows what tomorrow's going to bring. But the Bitcoin space seems to have consolidated, seems to be heading up again, seems to have found a floor, and so hopefully we'll be able to make a smooth transition. If the old economy collapses, maybe we'll have the underlying fundamentals, the underlying infrastructure to transition into the new economy. So this may be our opportunity to help a lot of people preserve their financial independence and their financial freedom. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to get in touch with me. And again, fan out all over the United States, all over the world. Create meetups, go to meetups, go online, do your research, and prosper, you guys. Take care, bye.